No question, money plays a role in life decisions, but now a new report out shows just how deeply the economy is influencing something as personal as when or even whether to start a family. Gen Z and millennials are especially feeling the squeeze here. And joining us live to talk about those findings is Lydia Jillick, the Vice President of Employee Benefit Solutions at Securian Financial. We appreciate your time this morning. We know the cost of raising kids isn't what it used to be, but when you dug into the numbers here, you've actually found that fertility rates have dropped. So what were those numbers and why were those the numbers that you found there?
Well, first of all, thank you, Tanner, for inviting me to join you this morning. I'm happy to tell a little bit about our survey. We did survey about 1,500 people through 2024 who were really in the workforce working for large employers, and we found that fertility rates have dropped almost 20%, so really 17% since 2017. So people really are thinking long and hard before they're having children. About 75% of Gen Z and millennial folks are saying that the economy, in fact, is having a major impact on their decision to have children.
Yeah, and those numbers trickle down into even more numbers there. Of course, we were just taking a look at some stats that, 75% of Gen Zers will more than likely stay with a or more than likely choose to be with a company with family building benefits. And of course, that all coinciding with that decision to kind of have children, right? Can you talk about that portion of the study and what you guys found with those numbers of the family building benefits aspect of this?
Most definitely. Thank you for the question. Really, we're seeing that employees are looking to stay with employers and even go to employers to choose employers that have family building benefits. So as if those are fertility benefits, because keep in mind that people are also thinking about having families a little bit later in life than they may have, and maybe looking at fertility issues as a result of that. And we've also seen that folks in the Gen X and Boomer populations are not unhappy to have those sort of fertility benefits and other family forming benefits available to their colleagues, which is really reassuring and refreshing to see in the marketplace.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So, let's talk about the economic factors here, right? There's a slew of economic factors impacting these numbers. What did your study find in that aspect? What is really impacting the Gen Zers and millennials of the world when it comes to making the decision to having children?
We're really seeing that inflation, questions about job security, and the cost of living are key factors. These are key factors for all of us, of course, but definitely something that we are seeing are impacting folks. The cost of raising a child has gone up a little over 40% in the last decade or so, and the cost of childcare since 2020, so really the beginning of COVID, has gone up over 20%. So we're really seeing impacts for those types of things. And keeping in mind that we're not just talking about people who may have one child, but they may have multiple children. And in some instances, these are people in sandwich generations. So they're not just taking care of children, but they're also taking care of parents and other folks in their household.
That's very interesting. So your survey, you mentioned it at the top of this that you've focused on people working full-time for larger corporations or large companies. What roles are those employers playing or maybe failing to play when it comes to supporting future parents in the workplace?
We're really starting to see employers step up and they're thinking about things, and what we're seeing are things that are important and that we're able to share with those large employers that we work with in this space are things like paid sick days, flexible schedules. So people have the opportunity to take time off when it is most appropriate for them and for their particular families. Also offering things like maternity and paternity leave. So as you're having a child, making sure that you're able to be there and be available for that youngster as they're going through some of those early stages, those times of flexibility. And also, again, as I mentioned before, support for caregivers, because these are people who are thinking not only about their children, but also about other family members in the workplace. Also seeing more and more employers offering fertility benefits. So having opportunities to have fertility help and tools at their disposal, be that in vitro fertilization or other kinds of things on that fertility spectrum.
So for the person watching this at home, what would you want them to take from this study as we're kind of looking at the grand economic picture of things here?
I think everybody that I talk to when I talk about the survey said there's never a perfect time to have a child. But also, as you're thinking about it, think about the economic factors, think about the support that you have from your family, look at the benefits that you have from your employer, and make sure that all of those things are appropriate for you as you're going through that decision. But know that there's probably never going to be a perfect time, but the rewards really are worth it.
Yeah, if you're maybe somebody who's thinking about having kids, or maybe you're a new family and you're not exactly sure where to start with your company on asking for those benefits, what would you recommend to those folks at home?
Talk to somebody in your employee benefits department. Some employers have intranet sites that are specific to that employer, and you can go online and look up fertility or family forming or something of that sort. Talk to somebody else in your organization who's recently gone through the process. They can be a wealth of information. Some employers offer hospital indemnity coverage that can provide for daily hospitalization costs for that maternity stay. So for that initial benefit for that initial day in the hospital, and then ongoing benefits if you're in the hospital for a day or so afterwards. So understanding what your benefits are, but talking to somebody who has been through the process and then also talking to your benefits department can be a really good resource. And they're there to help you and are anxious to make those connections for you so you can understand the benefits that are available.
Yeah, Lydia, I think this study is so interesting. I want to know where you guys came up with the idea to start looking into this, and how did you go about the gathering process of data for this study? How did you really put this all together?
Securian does a survey every year on something that we think is really topical and meaningful for employers and consultants that we work with and employees in the marketplace. Last year we studied caregiving, and this year we thought that family forming just was going to be an interesting topic. With some of the benefits that we offer, we've been getting additional questions about fertility benefits and really wanted to dig into where is the need coming from. We work with an outside organization to make sure that we can get a broad sample of people within the cohort that we're looking for. So we're able to make sure that we understand sort of we're getting people from the different generations as well as the group that we're looking for with those large employers.
Yeah, so you just mentioned fertility support, one of the benefits that has continually popped up here recently. What would you say to employers who might think that benefits like fertility support or caregiver leave are quote unquote extras rather than maybe something that should be essential in the workplace?
I think it's important to think about the value that your employees bring to your workplace every day, and having that continuity of employees, people who bring that value and are able to really have that as I said before, that continuity, the memory and the keeping of the understanding of what needs to be done, how to do it, having a team environment that people are coming back to and they feel comfortable and happy coming to work at, I think is a really important part as we see sort of something of the tightening of the job market in some instances, and particularly in some industries. So really thinking about those components and really making sure that your place of employment is someplace that people want to work.
Yeah. Can you talk about what's been the biggest change over, let's say, the last 20 years financially? You've mentioned that cost of living and cost of things have gone up significantly. Can you just talk about that aspect of the study? Why is that such a huge focus here, and why is that something we should be paying attention to when it comes to this study?
That's a fantastic question. I would say really thinking about the cost of living. Just if you think, depending upon where you are within the country, the cost of housing has gone up exponentially some in some areas. So that's definitely something that people are thinking about. People also are looking at interest rates and what housing is cost if they're thinking of moving from sort of their initial home or an apartment and they want to potentially move into a home so they can have children. Interest rates can definitely be an area of concern for people as they're going through this process and making those decisions.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of ask you to kind of interpret your data here just a little bit for me. What do you think the biggest conversation, or what area do you think the biggest part of the conversation has shifted into the modern discussions that we're having today about economic factors and having kids? What would you say is the biggest point of that conversation there?
I would say sort of circling back to housing and perhaps also the cost of childcare.
Yeah.
Those are the two big things that we're seeing coming out of this.
Yeah, and those can be very costly for maybe somebody who's just starting, may not have a lot of money in the bank, or maybe, somebody has a surprise kid, something like that, for
Of
instance,
course.
as well. I
Yeah.
want to ask you too, if somebody is if someone watching here is overwhelmed by the idea of affording a family, what might be your
Mhm.
advice or maybe an encouragement that you could offer that person?
Um, do the math, understand sort of where what your budget looks like, where are things that you maybe are spending money on that you don't need to spend money on. Again, looking at what your benefits are from your employer, what supports you have in place, what is your family able to contribute in terms of perhaps some support from a childcare standpoint and other things. Really looking more broadly, looking at what your community is able to offer as well. The rewards, again, as I said before, the rewards of having a family definitely are strong, and people really perhaps want to really think about those overall big picture items.
All right. Well, Lydia, we appreciate it. One more question. Any final thoughts or maybe something I haven't asked you that you think is important to include today?
Again, I would encourage people to go back and talk to their employer. Many people don't really understand what those benefits are that are available to them. So talk to your employer, and when you make that call to your employer or that email to your employer, that is also circling back and creating sort of a virtuous cycle, because it's going to drive them to be interested in potentially offering those benefits on a go forward basis as well. So it's going to benefit you, but it's going to benefit the people coming behind you as well.
All right. Lydia, thank you so much for your time. And of course, that study can be found on their website. Lydia, thank you.
Thank you so much, Tanner.